think it's muted. Oh, microphone. Nope. Stop touching things. Not that button. Bottom. That one. There you go. I don't know how I could still hear it. That's so interesting. Your microphone almost attacked you, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
Well, let it play. You're a monster.
I'm never going to let her finish.
He's a monster. How dare he? He's a literal monster.
What's up, guys?
What up?
What do you want to talk about, dude?
I want to talk about self-control in parenting.
Self-control in parenting.
Overrated. I want to talk about the aspect of the statement that I wrote down is when is spanking us losing our self-control and or is keeping our children away from Shaul, right? And then when do we sin in our anger in parenting? Keeping a level head and an emotional maturity, self-controlled being when parenting and disciplining our children. And how can you sit and let the emotions of your children go? And when is the point that you draw the line and move forward? And how can you keep your focus on love through the moments of discomfort of discipline? So this is a
lot of questions. I'm not sure that
all around children and parenting. So obviously, if you don't have kids, it's okay. You guys can still listen. You'll learn something,
or listen to the next one.
But or listen to another one of our episodes. But this, I just believe in general. Even if you don't have kids, I hope this blesses you in general. But as a parent,
this looks like I don't even have a body.
You look very funny when you do that. Yeah,
right?
You look. It's focused on your shoe too.
Yeah, it looks like.
I mean, your shoe is crisp.
I look like a contortionist. Is that what you call it?
That's a good job. That's a good word for that. Well done. I mean, that's a good word.
Oh,
not a lot of people know what that is.
Okay,
that wasn't a diss to you. Jeez.
It felt like it at first. I looked at you. I was like,
"Are you throwing?
Should I slap you or should I say thank you?"
No, this is honest. So this is the conversation my wife and I were having actually with another couple, and we were talking through like where's the point that spanking is for me and not for my kid anymore. We're like where some people they'll allow spanking to be where they get out their anger on their child.
Right.
Instead of like actually the correction, the discipline that we're trying to, produce. The reality of a spanking is to help them, get out of whatever it is, the discipline or, the word of God says, don't spare the rod, because you're actually saving their soul from Shaul, and different in reality from hell, in that translation and stuff. And so,
right.
So where's the line in discipline that we are, doing it out of anger because my kid just ticked me off? Or where am I doing it out of as a good father or as a good mother that, hey, I need to discipline my child because again, the word also says the Lord disciplines them whom he loves. So how do we discipline our children out of love, not out of anger? So I'd love to hear your take on like what are some ways that you do this? What are some ways that you have failed? Because in me, I have with my daughter, I've had a moment where I was disciplining her in grace, right? Like I was actually disciplining her because I needed her to understand that's not safe, right? And it was one time when she was trying to jump off the couch when she was real small. There's nothing on the ground, like it's just we just have laminate flooring, And she was trying to jump off the couch, and I caught her, and she started laughing. I was like, Nova, you gotta realize if you do this, you're gonna hurt yourself. Right? And you're going to hurt yourself. She did it again. I was like, Nova, one more time and daddy's going to have to give you a spanking. And this is before we even like really introduced any spanking or any type of discipline because she just wasn't at the age of like realizing the cognitive, like understanding that stuff. And so she does it again. And so I catch her, say, Nova, you're getting a spanking because of this. I pop her on her butt. It's like one of the first times I ever spanked her. Popped her on her butt with a diaper on, all that stuff, And she looks at me and she laughs. And in that moment, I had anger rise up in me. And I was like, oof. And I popped her again out of anger, not out of discipline. And in that moment, I literally later on, I was in conversation with the Lord. I'm like, God, what just came out of me? Because that wasn't out of discipline. The first one it was out of grace, out of love, caring for my daughter. The second one was harder and out of anger because her response to my discipline.
Yeah, I think you and I might disagree on this conversation.
But that's okay. Yeah. So let's hear it.
Yeah. No, I think that we, first of all, I think we vilified anger. We've made anger a villain.
Well, so the scripture that I have for anger, by the way, is do not sin.
Don't be controlled.
Sin. Yeah.
Right. So, I think the way I see discipline, and I could be wrong. Again, I'm a new parent, so this is very new to me. But I definitely have experienced moments when the way I discipline Luca is just out of lack of self-control, right? Like it's just like I am angry. I am just trying to just do something right away. But I do think that there's a line, and I could be wrong again. There's a line that children ought not to cross, which is the absolute disregard and contempt for authority line. I think I would describe laughing as that line. You know what I mean? Like if you're encountering authority and you are laughing, we're either not conveying that authority clearly enough, or the consequences of disobedience are not painful enough. You know, and I'm not. And by painful, I don't mean physically painful. I mean just
the
painful enough, right? Like
yeah.
Consequences are painful. You know, if you go and you stab somebody, you're going to go to jail, and that's painful. You're going to have your freedom taken from you. If you go
straight to jail,
right? If you go
overcooked chicken, straight to jail.
You know, go and say something ugly about a big dude's girlfriend, you're gonna get punched in the face, and that's gonna be painful, right? Like, and I say big dude because like you also begin to realize as you walk this life, where can you get away with things, right? And so for me, discipline is a way to exemplify consequences to my son, so that he doesn't have to experience those consequences out in the world later. Right? Like experience it with me, because I'm not going to kill you in the process of disciplining you. I'm going to make it painful enough that you know it's something you shouldn't do, right? But I'm also not going to hurt you in a long lasting way, right? It's and so yeah, I think we might see it differently, because I think anger has been vilified in a way where people just think anger is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But
So
anger,
for me, I
know we don't, but I think it's important that we clarify that with people, right? That like, I don't think anger is a bad thing.
Oh, it's a matter of the sin aspect.
It's a matter of, are you sinning in your anger?
Correct.
And so like there are moments when Luca has been very disrespectful, and I get instantly angry and address exactly what's happening, and I feel no conviction about that, because I know that it's my responsibility to do that.
Correct.
And I am purging evil from my home. I'm purging evil from his heart. Like I am just like going after that, right?
We're purging selfishness, etc. So like something you mentioned of like laughing is something that you find as a disrespect in authority. So I had a friend that when he would get nervous, he would laugh uncontrollably, and he was a 20-year-old. And he would be getting corrected by a pastor, by a leader, by a coworker, etc. And he would be laughing, and people are like, "What is going on?" Right. When in reality, he meant no disrespect. That was his body's nervous response, right?
I
and
agree
so
with that.
like that's
I've
learning.
Seen that. My sister.
Oh
does
yeah,
that. Yeah.
And so like learning even your children in that.
Yeah,
Like I literally in the moment that happened with my daughter when she laughed when I popped her, I was like, okay, I may need to see if this is her just being nervous now, because this is the first time I've ever spanked her. And so I'm like, maybe this is just her nervous reaction, right? But then, again, I can only control me as the father. And so in that moment, I knew in that moment, it wasn't anger out of, I need to discipline this child to help her. It was actually the response of, I'm going to hit her because...
Yeah, but
it was out of
don't
anger.
You think, and again, I'm not saying the way you did is right. I'm not saying that. I just think
I'll put it this way. I know my heart in that moment, and it was wicked.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So
sure,
in that
sure.
moment, the
No,
first one
that's why I don't
was
know
pure,
that situation.
right? So the first time it was pure.
Yeah.
When again, that's why I took it to the Lord, right? And that's what I want to ask within this in the context of things. Not that every single time that you correct your child that you're in anger. No, or you're not in anger, right? Like no, there's both, but it's a question of when is the moment and how do we live in self-control. How do we as parents in self-control discipline our child and then move forward in that way, right?
Yeah, so I have one thought.
Yeah.
So first, I think I realized and this is an ongoing journey forever as a parent. And I can only imagine, like right now I only have a young boy. Eventually he's going to be a teenager and it's going to be even an even more necessary skill. But I realized that early on in my walk as a parent that there was a part of me that didn't want to allow Luca to be a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like that adult part of you that just doesn't want to deal with like the nonsense and the chaos of a child being a child, right?
Yep.
I think that like for me personally, I've had to deal with with that walk and with the understanding that Luca is going to miss doing certain things, or he's going to make certain mistakes, or he's going to do certain things simply because he's a child.
Right. 100%.
And I think the anger. I think to answer your question, I think the anger part, the way I define whether it's sinning or it's righteous, is usually if love is in the underlying reason, and by love I mean sometimes love wants to hurt. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
love is hurtful sometimes.
yeah, like love.
Like it is.
Love wants to. Again, like
be
as
truthful.
a parent, like
Truthful.
you need to get this, because if you don't,
The consequences later is
going
going
to be
way
right.
more
So, for
extreme.
example, Luca has had moments where he like speaks to his mom in a very disrespectful way, and I think I just see it a lot deeper than like most parents do. Like I think about a lot of things. One, I think if he talks to his mom like that, how's he going to talk to his wife? If he talks to his wife like that, how's he going to talk to his children one day,
Or friends,
right,
just people,
friends, but then I also think about, okay, if he observes me, if he watches me observe, I know this sounds redundant, but if he sees me see him do this, if
his eyes lay on my eyes, watching his eyes.
if he notices that I'm watching him do this and I have no response, and let's say, maybe not say no response, but I don't have no equitable response based on what he's doing, I think that's bad for him as well, because then what he's going to expect about life is that the authorities over us are not going to actually do anything about what it is that we're doing, right? And so in moments like that, I've been very angry, but I've been very angry in love. You know what I mean? Like, something I have a hard time with, and you tell me about this. I have a hard time telling my son I'm gonna give him a spanking later. That's hard for me, because I feel like that physical consequence after like 5 minutes, I feel wrong giving him a physical consequence after 5 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm like, I've already had time to be like we're out of that now. You know what I mean? So it's like, so now that physical response feels super strange to me. Super weird. Like it feels wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually saw it one time with one of our friends. I saw it done so very well, and it was his boy. I think he was 3 at the time, and he just told him, he was like, "Look," and we were driving, and he was like, "Look, if you scream, you're gonna, you're supposed to have an inside voice when you're in the car. Keep calm and like move forward in this way, right?" And so he's driving, and then he screams, and he gives him a warning. He says, "Hey, buddy, if you scream again, maybe you're just really excited. Maybe you just got really excited because you're playing with stuff. Hey, that's okay. Like you had a moment, right? But if you do it again, you're gonna get a spanking when we get home." He said, "Okay, Daddy," right? And then driving a few minutes later, he screams again. He goes, "All right, buddy, I told you, if you screamed one more time, you're going to get a spanking when we get home, right? And he says, yes, Daddy. He's like, so what's going to happen when we get home? He says his name, gonna get spanking. It's like, right. Why? Because I screamed. Good job, buddy. All right. And we finished driving home. We're about 10, 15 minutes home. Gets him out of the car seat. And what's funny is for five minutes later, he says his name, and I'll call him Buddy. He says, Buddy, gonna get a spanking? And my friend goes, you are gonna get a spanking because you did that. He's like, yeah. And he knew the consequence was coming. He knew that he did something wrong and the reason why behind it. And he did not fight it. He didn't complain about it. He actually was quiet for the rest of the trip, for the next 10 minutes of the drive. Got home, pulled him out, said, hey, getting a spanking because you screamed. I said, yes, Daddy. Pop. And in that moment, he was good. And moved forward and understood, and he was upset at that little thing. But then he was the realization of, okay, we're driving, so you could just pull off the road and pop him and then, keep going.
Can I tell you what the interesting things about that for me? So I'm not saying that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing for me is that for me, spankings are less about the physical pain and more about that encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So so let me paint the encounter for you. Usually the child is afraid that they did something that they weren't supposed to do, right? Because realistically speaking, I don't think that a spanking should be hard enough that it actually physically hurts that much. You know what I mean? I think it should sting.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Some people, when is spanking, losing self-control. Some people are like, I have lost and I have left marks. Like I haven't, but I have friends that talk about that, where it's like they've lost their control.
Yeah.
But now I need to discipline my child to understand this is not okay, and they've lost control. So that's I'm not trying to toy of the sin, and not I'm trying the self-control.
It's normal that we're having a hard time kind of picturing it or painting it because that's how hard it is to wrestle with it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that I think that's a good place to start. I think that parents should not the disparity between your strength and that child cannot be a wide gap. It has to be as close to the child as possible in regards to strength. You know what I mean? Where they're not feeling like an adult is just laying it. No, I don't even feel like laughing about it because there are kids that experience this growing up where they just feel like their parents are just going off on them, right? And so that's why that's the reason why. So first of all, foremost, to define that's bad, and that can exemplify and show the inner struggle and just sin of a parent that is just exerting pain.
Which is, by the way, that's my target today. I'm not even talking about the child. The child has fallen short, right? They have sinned. They're a child. And
we're the target. Yeah,
you actually touched base perfectly on it. There's moments, and that's another question of mine in this, is there's a moment where I have to allow my child to be 2 years old. She's 2 years old. Right. How can I get annoyed? This is what's so funny. And I used to get really annoyed by some parents when I was a youth pastor in this stuff, is they would have these really ridiculous expectations on a teenager, yet they wouldn't hold themselves to that same standard, right? And so the realization of we're expecting a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, et cetera, fill in the blank, wherever your kid is at, to be at an emotional maturity, a mental maturity, an obedience mindset, whatever it is, and just in that stuff at a level that we might not be already, or we don't expect of our own selves. Right. And so it's wait a minute, we can't, there has to be a point we have to realize that
even if you expected it of yourself, you have decades of brain development to be able to.
30 years old. She is 2. I think I have 28 years on that girl.
Yeah, I think that there are obviously there's no we say there's no book for parenting. There are tons of books for parenting. But realistically speaking, on the day to day, every kid is so different. All of their motivations are so different. The way that they react to discipline is so different, right? For example, I'll give you an example. My son is far less likely to misbehave if he has my attention.
If he has your attention.
My attention. If
you're not distracted.
if that day I've given him intentional, like just of my presence, so just like an intentional amount of my presence, Luca is very unlikely that he'll want to misbehave. He'll still do it, but it would be very unlikely. Now, I think that there are some like the journey of like, I mean, this is tough. I mean, let's talk about parenting, okay? You start with like a little like uncivilized, like little, and I mean this. I don't mean this literally. I mean this metaphorically. Animal, right? Who just poops and eats, right? And it's just like learning like slowly how to be like how to reflect and like all that stuff. And then as they grow up, you have to adjust your parenting according to their level of development, which you are learning as they go.
Right.
Now, to add to that like super like difficult like job, they have their own personalities. So you might have tried something with this child, but if you try with this child, it's not going to work. So it's a tough thing, right? So for me, like I just feel like there are like parts of each season, and again, I haven't been a parent for a long time, but there are the parts of each season that are appropriate and are very primal to in regards to like what you're trying to develop in a child, right? And so like I'll tell you, like Luca has a hard time talking to me a certain way. You know what I mean? And I think the reason why he has a hard time talking to me a certain way is because we've been working on this, right? Where I've looked at him and I said, son, you cannot talk to daddy like that. That's not acceptable. Where I'm working on that with his mom as well. And you know what's crazy? And this is an interesting thing. Speaking specifically of like the dishonor of like how he talks to us.
Dishonor your cow.
Dishonor your cow. Dishonor your generations. That's a movie.
Mulan.
Some of Luca's outburst of speaking the way he does, not some, most of them are birthed out of impatience, not out of dishonor. So he's more impatient emotionally than he is
wanting to dishonor
you, like look at you and go, right? Now there are times though. There are times when he'll like buck up, you know, and those are the moments where I'm like, no, right? So, for example, if he wanted to watch a show and we turn it off, he might go, you know, whatever. He might get upset. He might get frustrated. I really want it. He must still talk loud, whatever. But it's out of his need, right? Now there are other moments when, like for example, I remember a very specific moment, and Luca got a spanking that day, and he won't remember, but he got it. That his mom took something from his hands and he looked straight at her and he said, no. I mean, he said it, the way he said it was like he was trying to parent her.
Yeah.
And that day I was angry. Right? Now, I didn't hurt him, but he knew that was wrong. You know what I mean? And it wasn't just the physical like consequence. Yeah. It was the way I talked to him. It was the way I addressed him. It was what I told him in that moment. It was the way he felt in that moment. I allowed him to feel that I am protecting
the
mom,
weight of
right?
it,
And that he does not have the jurisdiction and authority to talk to his mom like that. And so I think like that moment he learned. But every situation is so different, bro.
So again, we don't have too long. We have 6 minutes now.
Sorry.
Let's talk on the aspect of us as parents. Again, where is the line? What are some of the lines that we can notice?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Again,
can I finish telling you about the why I don't tell him I'll spank him later?
Sure.
So for me, spanking, the purpose of spanking is less pain and more fear.
Okay.
Like I want him to understand that that's one moment in which he's getting a consequence. Does that make sense? And for him to realize, like, if I do blank, I might get a consequence, right? It's more, and so when I spank him later, because again, I'm not spanking him to hurt him. I'm spanking him to like to kind of snap him out of like this is something wrong, right? If I spank him later, I feel like I don't have that variable of, oh gosh, I did something wrong, I shouldn't do it, and now it's just physical punishment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so and I feel like physical punishment just by itself, again, for me, I'm like, I just feel weird doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think age for me, when I look at it, like now age, again, I have a 2-year-old. So like, I probably wouldn't do the consequence of time wise. I know I need to like I need to get her to relax, settle down, and then explain this is what's going on. But I feel like as you get older, because again, it would be as simple as, and this is how I think, right? There are some things in life that are immediate consequences. Other things that actually will take time. So like in reality, like if you do murder someone, you're going to go to jail. That's one consequence.
Right.
But there's actually going to be another layer of consequence that is going to be possibly added to that. Now, was it a manslaughter? It was your decision. Was it an accident? Was it like so on and so on, right? So there actually is a later in life consequence.
Right.
And like all of that. But again, that's a whole nother conversation. What I really wanted today about was as a parent, how do we live in that self-control? How do we control ourselves in the manner of like, all right, how do I have maturity, because I am the 30-year-old. I am the one that has gone through a lot of life. I am the one that has decided.
Can I ask you a question that's going to take us probably way far past 26 minutes?
Well, here we go.
So do you think God is severe?
Severe? I don't think God is severe because he sets the lines. Now, I think we have definitions of what severe is, but to him, it's not severe. It's him just holding true to the justice and the judge and who he is.
So do you think he's severe?
And in man's definition, I think there's some things I would consider him severe, but not if I was to take it into his. No, not in his character.
So
who he
Romans says, notice how God is both kind and severe. So that's like, it actually like uses the word severity, right?
Yeah.
Severe. So, another thing that we don't consider and talk about. This is gonna go longer. I'm sorry,
no,
dude.
it's
I'm
not.
just thinking, okay.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because
we'll do another episode.
This is about parenting. This is about parenting. So who do we emulate when we parent?
Well, yeah, the Lord.
The Lord, right? Okay.
Right.
So the Lord is a parent. It's the parent. So, and we're
But we
emulating
do our
him.
best to emulate him.
No, we do our best, right? With the tools that we have, right? Like we can, and this is a different conversation, right? Like I wouldn't let a nation come and overcome my son and make him their slave. But the Lord's done that. So the question is, have we? I'm just gonna throw this question out. So I think it's a fair question. Have we tried to be nicer than God in the process of like relating to our children? And I don't mean that we need to be meaner. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is God in the process of purging evil from hearts has gone to great lengths. You know what I mean? And
Yet he also hasn't destroyed us constantly.
Not you and me,
us.
Joey, but there have been many.
But what I mean by is disciplining. No, dude, trust me, I understand that world. But what I mean is you and I. Listen, you and I deserve, if we take it in consideration of disciplining the children that he loves.
By the grace of
there's
God,
many
he hasn't
times
destroyed
I have
you and
not
I.
reaped everything that I've sown.
But
right.
the Lord has.
Oh, absolutely.
In the wilderness today, there still lie the bodies of the Israelite people who treated him with contempt in the water. We're going from
in the waters of the depths of
Egypt
the earth
to
all over the place,
everywhere, right? So this is the problem I have. Okay, we weren't going this direction.
No, we can't go this direction.
No, yes, you can. Yes, you can. No, because now
Joey's going to do this.
He opened the door.
Joey's going to pause this. I'm not opening the door.
No, what do you mean pause?
This is what's going to happen.
29. Hey, let's go. Let's pause the camera and let's keep going.
Oh my gosh, this is not how this is going to go.
Yes,
we're going to end this episode.
No. We're going to pause the camera and we're going to keep going. Dang it!
Why? Why are we going to keep going?
Because it's still the same thoughts, the same conversation. Let's stop fighting on camera, all right? Let's just keep going.
Pause it. 3, 2, 1.
And we're back.
he got his way. So I'll submit to him on this one.
Submit. Gosh, so humble.
So humble. Humblest man I know.
No, so the question I was going to ask is, and the reason why is because we live in these times of the new way is the better way in every way, right? So marriage, the new way is the better way. in just like all these different areas of life. And parenting is not an exception. And so we've had all this talk about gentle parenting. Have you heard of gentle parenting?
Oh yeah. Yep.
What is gentle parenting to you?
Well, what do you mean by that?
How do you understand it? Like gentle parenting?
So gentle parenting to me, how I understand it, is like there's no physical consequence to your children. That's
So
how
is that
I
like the
understand
basic
it.
premise? Like no basic.
That's how
consequence?
I understand it. That like whenever I hear gentle parenting, but
Well, there's also a lot of talk about how the word no, like apparently shorts the brain of little children. It breaks them apart. It makes them, causes them to have brain.
yeah, so why we're so stupid.
Is that why I'm dumb? Because I heard no so much.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and so for me, gentle parenting is there's no physical consequence. Now I could be very wrong. Maybe that's not.
This is where I was going with that, with the whole
yeah.
gentle term. Before, so you can tell me that. So the thought I was going to make is that, we look at God in the way that He parents, in the way that He leads His people, in the way that He brings forth consequences, in the way that He is comfortable with us going through the discomfort of those consequences for a long term. And I think we just live in a time where we want to come up with a better way and to be like nicer than God. I think everybody wants to be just nicer than God. You know what I mean?
I've never
We're
heard
just
that.
so nice. We're so nice. We're so nice. God is so mean and we're so nice because we really want to be so in control of what we do and don't do. And I think part of the problem is that we are just so afraid of the job of having to exemplify to our children what good and evil is. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
and it's
also
like we just like have arrived
yeah.
at this like subjective location of like, oh, it's all gonna be okay, and like, don't, buddy, is there a better idea than that? You know what I mean? Like, it's
Well,
like,
I also think a lot of people get stuck in the I want to be my child's friend. Like that's like that aspect, I think, is where most of it bleeds from.
Please, sir.
When in reality, like we're not called to be our children's friend.
No.
Now, is there a time for that? Yes. But for your first 18 years of your life, no.
well, let me tell you
So-
something. Luca is my best buddy.
So what I mean by friend. So let me explain
Yeah.
what I mean by
no,
his
no,
friend.
I know,
Right.
I know where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like supplementing what you're saying.
Yeah. Like in reality, yeah, I love Nova. She's my buddy, but like,
Yeah.
but she's still my kid.
And
you know?
and we have a trusted
And-
relationship where I look at him and I tell Luca this all the time. I said, buddy, I love you with my whole heart, right?
Right.
You're my best buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I say, I can't let you do that, right?
Right.
Yes, Daddy, I know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, I think it's not even that we can't be their friends. It's that we have a wrong view of like what friendship is like.
Yeah.
It's like the world's friendship. It's the world's friendship. Our friendship is not like that. Our friendship is not,
But
I
also
just
don't
let you do whatever.
discipline you. I also don't discipline you.
No, but
and
you cut the
correct
heck out
you.
of me.
Right, but I don't discipline you.
No, but in a way it is discipline. In a way it is let's call it accountability.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
accountability,
Yeah.
right? So we are accountability to our children, right? And it's like this is so good. Thank you, Lord. This is wisdom from God. We want to have the world's friendship with our children. What is the world's friendship? The world's friendship. I don't tell you if I see something wrong, I don't tell you. Because I might lose your friendship.
Right.
If I feel the urge to tell you, hey, you should probably make a different decision because that's bad. That's just bad for your life. I'm not gonna do that because I'm too afraid to lose your friendship. And like, that wants to infiltrate into our relationship with our kids. Where like, bro, if I love you and I see you walking towards a fire, I'm gonna hang on to your arm. You might tell me, bro, let me go. I hate you, and I might say, I'm sorry, dude. I'm not letting you go. No matter how much you hate me, let me go right now. Stop pressuring me to go a different way. Dude, I don't care what you say. You're gonna stay right here because I see what's gonna happen to you. You know what I mean? Where the world's friendship is, oh, you won the fire. Okay, well if that's your truth.
Well, and again, I think there's the blending of both. Like there's times where Paul just let people to their own decisions, and like
Right.
as he called them, it like his faith children.
But you know why? But you know why he said that? He said, "Let them
go, so then they would come back."
So in hopes, right? So it's like,
but again, we're not into that side. The aspect that for me, like
that's for a different day.
like gentle parenting and like things like that. Like now, do I believe there's things that we may, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, is are there things that we are doing in aggressive in a way that isn't in our own selves as the parent? I'm not looking at the kids. I'm not looking at what their responses are. I'm not looking at what they've done and why they deserved the spanking, why they didn't deserve the spanking, why they didn't deserve just a conversation. Like that's no. I'm literally looking at, as the parent, our heart in the moment, our decision, our mentality, our emotional maturity in that moment. Like, what are the lines? Where are the moments that we can start seeing, I need to step forward and move in discipline, or where's the, like, and move in self-control in that, or where are the lines where I'm actually out of control as the parent and I'm actually being physically abusive or emotionally abusive or verbally abusive, or where I am not actually moving in the character of God. Because this is the thing, God is perfect. God is perfect. We are not. God does not make mistakes. We do make mistakes. He does not get unrighteously angry because he is righteousness. Like we can try to be like the Lord, but in reality, we also have to submit that I am not God, and I will never be able to parent.
No,
like
that's
God
why we
can.
try to emulate him.
And so I can try to emulate him, but I will fall short of the glory of God every single day. And so it's like, okay, how can I move in this, right? And so as a parent, like with Nova, again, there's moments where I have a physical correction, and there's moments where I have a verbal conversation. And because there's a moment where I actually might be heated. And in my anger, if I physically did something to my daughter, I'm going to be sinning.
Right.
But I'm going to take control of my own emotions. Because sometimes, again, it's a reality of like, sometimes we just want to implode on our children or on our wives, going back to integrity. I want to just implode and then be like, what, I just fell short. When in reality, no, you were out of control. You were out of self-control. Like, you were not in control of yourself. Your flesh ran rampant over you. Right. You allowed it to control you. Your emotions controlled you. You did not control it, and et cetera. So like, when is that line? What are some ways that we, as we kind of develop through this, what are some of the ways that we can notice those things really quick? Fire them off. What are some ways that you, as, what are you doing over there? Get up. What are you doing? Focus.
I'm sorry.
Focus.
I wanted to make sure that, sorry.
Focus. All right. What are some of the ways that
I thought it was the same text. I thought we got the same text. I'm like, make sure.
No, I got a phone call.
Nothing happened. Okay.
I got a phone call. What are some ways you, as a parent, when you notice yourself getting out of control, when you start seeing your flesh starts taking over in discipline, what are some of the ways that you either notice it or that you start taking charge back in the spiritual realm to be like, Alejandro, this is, I'm not going to sin in my anger. I'm not about that. I'm not going to let my anger lord me. What are some of the things that you do?
So for me, a big one was understanding how God operates in anger. And what I mean by that is how quickly he gets there.
Okay.
And so the Bible says that he's slow to anger. So, so for me, that's one thing that, like, practically I began to just ponder and think about that. It's not that anger is bad, it's that God has a progression to anger. It's not an immediate thing, right? And so for me, what that looks like practically is I like to give Luca a chance to turn a different direction.
Are you a counter?
No, I'm not. I hate counting. I don't like counting because I feel like counting undermines my authority. So I'll say I just have levels to my voice. It's the only way I know. So, hey buddy, let's go do this. No.
Hey buddy.
Hey Luca, let's go do this. Hey Luca, let's, right. So it just continues to, right. So
it's pretty much counting, but in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and the reality,
but we do that.
But it's not.
Just as parents, like we do, like because you're praying your child doesn't get you to the point of needing discipline.
And
like, honestly,
but
like
sometimes he doesn't. Yeah.
Right,
and
right.
and he'll like, I'll say the second time I say,
Right.
hey buddy.
Right.
And then
He's
like
like,
he'll
oh
pay
yeah,
attention
yeah,
and go, you know what I mean?
Because sometimes
So-
they're not. Again, it's just like what you said, where it's like as sometimes you feel like Luca isn't purposely trying to be dishonorable. Sometimes he's just impatient,
or he's just a child,
right?
And he's just distracted.
He's just a 3-year-old.
But then there are other times,
yes, and so
and there are a lot of these
yeah,
times
yeah.
when he's just like willingly ignoring us,
Yeah.
and he is doing it to test the line, how far. And
Okay, back to you, back to you,
Sorry,
back to you, back to you.
sorry.
Back to you.
So having a process by which I get to my anger is like a practical thing that I've like tried to implement.
That's good. So what are some of those practical, like, what are your steps? What would you say, like, some of that slow to anger for you, that when you start seeing your when your face starts feeling hot, when you start getting your ears turning, like,
I'll tell you,
what are
I
some
don't
of the
really
things?
get angry often with Luca. I think for Luca to get me angry, he really has to just have blatant disrespect that is just like super rough.
Yeah.
But most of the time that I sound angry, I'm not really angry.
Right. Oh,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
have to sound angry, right? So or I just have to sound like I'm mean, like mean. But so instead of like, I'm not like, Luca, you know, whatever. Like, I'm not really upset. I just know I have to begin to go through that journey with him.
So let's
you know
take it as, let's take it if he disrespects your bride, but at a certain level, right? Because I know that's what gets you
It makes me smile because
Right.
that's like literally because like
do it
I
again,
grew up.
boy.
you got to understand. I grew up in a and I'm grateful for this. I grew up in an environment where it was yes, ma'am, yes, sir,
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
Like, hey, Alejo.
Yep.
Like, it was never yes or
Right.
yeah or It was always
Yep.
yes, sir, yes, ma'am, right? And like,
Yep.
and that's just like that Colombian culture of like just honor and respect. And I'm very grateful for that, you know. And today is the day that my dad, you know, if he calls me today, like, it's still yes, sir. You know, it's just like, it's just honor. And so so there were seasons and there were times with my dad where I was genuinely afraid of him because I didn't honor him. You know, there were times when I shouted or I yelled or whatever, and I met the consequence right then, like right away. But I'm grateful because the relationship I have with my dad is such a healthy relationship in that regard. Like, I have a lot of access to talk to him about things that like most people would never talk to their parents about. You know, like, I'll talk to my dad about things that I'm like, I'll present to him like stuff that I think he's maybe doing wrong, or that I just think that, you know, and like, where I know kids that don't have that level of honor with their parents, and at the same time they also wouldn't talk to them about like hard stuff, you know. I have both, which I'm really grateful for with my dad and with my mom. And so so that gets me over the line. I see it different. Like, I see it different. Like, you got to understand, when I moved to the United States, I heard this Hispanic comedian say, because he's very white looking. It's just a funny joke. I thought it was a funny joke. He goes, he's like, I'm white, dude. I look so white, bro. I look like I tell my mom to shut up. And I just died laughing, right? Because he's Cuban, and he's like,
Oh
it's just
God.
different. Like, parents,
Yeah.
Hispanic parents are different, bro. Like, and so when I got here, I recognized that, and this might be a different conversation, but like, I recognized that culture of honor towards parents was not present. You know, it's like kids had this like freedom.
Again,
here.
I just feel like it's the friend aspect. A lot of people get stuck in the, I want to be my child's friend, and in reality, I just, like, if I could tell you now, like my parents were my friends, but they were my parents first. And guess what? There were moments that I genuinely disliked my parents until I was 18, 19 years old. And then there was a season where I realized how blessed I really was. And now my parents are my friends, but they're also still my parents, but they tend to lean inside of my parents. Yeah. Like, it's now my dad doesn't tell me how to live my life. He gives advice for my life. And he doesn't hold in reality, the 18 years of me living in his household is the one he's going to be held accountable for to the full extent.
Well,
now he still will be held accountable for certain things over me.
Yeah.
But in reality, as the word has said, I have left my father and my mother, and I have
Yeah,
I have
he doesn't
I
have the
now
same
lived my own,
access
right?
and
So
yeah.
like that's where like now my father is a friend of mine, you know, and now I have very different conversations than I ever have. Like being 30, and obviously even when I was 20, very different conversations with my earthly dad than I did when I was 18, 16, 15, 14 years old.
Yeah. I have a different theory, like, or an additional theory, not different. I think that's part of it. I think another thing about the United States that causes children to have a lack of honor for their parents is that the United States is highly individualistic. And so when you are in a home, kids think that they are their own people without their parents.
Right.
Like they own their space. They have their own rights, like their own, right? And it's like there's not this like
I'm gonna be honest. I can't wait to tell my daughter. I can't wait to tell her I own that pillow. It's my bed.
There's not the
This is my house.
You know what's interesting? I said this might sound really harsh, but Luke, yesterday we were trying to give Selah a bath with Luca in the same bath, and Luca plays with Selah's little tub when she's not taking a bath, and so we're about to give her a bath, and he's like, "No, that's my tub." And I stopped him. It wasn't the first time. It was probably like the fifth, sixth time, and I stopped him and I said, "Son, this is my tub.
This is my tub, boy."
I allow you to play with this tub." And right now it's Sissy's turn to get a bath.
Right.
So would you please let go of my tub so that
Before
your
I
sister
put
can
you
use
in
it?
the tub.
No, and I said it calmly.
Yeah,
I said
yeah.
it calmly, but it's that thing. It's that
Right.
like it's like the children just think that they are. You know what it reminds
I
me
don't
of?
have to teach a kid no.
You know what it
I don't have
reminds
to
me
teach
of?
a kid mine.
You know what it reminds me of? You remember the prodigal son story?
Absolutely.
You know why the prodigal son story is so profound? Is because this child could not wait for his dad to pass so that he could have his place. He wanted to have it early.
Right. And then the other kid had access to everything, yet acted like he didn't have access to anything.
No, but in a way, and that's a different story, like the other kid. But like that child that leaves is the child that is disregarding the authority and the longevity and the generational meaning of their parent being who they are over them and being who they are as an image to be honored and respected. And so when that child leaves, like what?
Almost like one of the 10 commandments is honor your parents.
Honor your parents.
Gasp.
Right.
All right, we're gonna end it here. Okay, we love you guys.
Okay, yeah, go and do that.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah. Go honor your parents.
So anyway, what I was saying in regards to like the whole like kids like trying to be nice or whatever, or parents trying to be like nicer than God is like. I think part of the reason, like the conversation started, like I'm sorry, when I'm thinking, I like to jitter.
Sorry, Agostini.
When we talk about like spanking or not spanking, or we talk about, I think the bottom line for me is: are you doing it to satisfy you, or are you doing it to serve them?
Which is
Right.
why I asked the question: when is the moment when we get out of self-control? When do we sin in our anger? When are the moments? And we need to start asking ourselves that.
Well, self-control might
moment?
be self-control. Can I tell you a version of self-control we're not thinking about? Self-control might be you don't want to spank that child.
Correct.
But you have to.
So that's what I'm saying. When are the moments that I am actually the main for most men? It's actually not, I don't want to. Most men, I feel like that I've ever had a conversation about parenting is, when do I need to hold my hand and say, no, I need to have an emotional and a verbal conversation with my child? While most women, most moms, because again, this is the beauty that the Lord has given us, are the two sides. The Lord has given the beauty of this. That's the same thing. The Lord, there's moments he has conversations with us, and there's moments where he disciplines us.
Right.
There's both in the beauty of that. And so, so I would encourage you guys, just ask yourselves that question, especially even whenever
What
it
about you?
happens.
How do you know? How do you
Well,
know?
I
I
got to
wanna know.
land this thing, bro.
No, you tell
I gotta
me
land
and
this
then
thing. I'm
land.
at 50 minutes. I'm at friggin' 50 minutes right now, and I said this was gonna be a 30-minute-er, and the other one too was supposed to be a 30-minute-er. So I'm landing this plane. The thing how I know is to check in my heart, just like what happened whenever with Nova. I have settled myself anytime before. Just the other night, I had a moment of she was hitting her guitar against the glass door, and like again, she wasn't hurting anything, wasn't breaking anything, but we just said, hey baby, like don't do that, you might break your guitar. And it was for her, right? And so she looks at me and kind of like taps it. Well, actually first looks at mommy, because mommy was the one that said it first. And then she said it again. And so she tapped it against the glass and laughed again. And I went, Nova, what did mommy say? And so she looks at me and she kind of smiles and taps it. And I just stand up and I just look at her. And my joke is I have my father's eyes, the Ruggiero's eyes. And I just raise my eyebrow and I just stare at her. She goes, and starts playing the guitar and doesn't do it again. Why? Because in that moment she knew, if I do that again, Daddy's gonna come and pop my thigh. And she knew, like, it wasn't, again, she wasn't doing something dangerous. She wasn't doing something where she was blatantly, originally it was her just laughing, having fun with it. And
No,
like,
but
again,
she's testing.
But then
She's
it started
like,
to test
how
it.
far can I
Right.
go before
And
I figure out that you are just
Right.
like something I
But
can
again,
step on?
I had to control, because I could have. The second time, I could have stood up, popped Nova on the thigh and went, Mommy told you once, you're not supposed to be doing that. But no, I was in self-control. I stood up and I looked at her. And in that moment, my daughter realized I should probably not be doing that. And so I didn't even need to do anything. So like in that moment, I'm realizing, for me, there's not always the cause of physical. I don't need to do it.
No.
And
That
then on
should
top
not be
of
your
that,
first. Yeah.
Like on top of that, I understand there's a moment of there is a moment I need them to realize there's a consequence, like going on the road, like things like there needs to be an immediate. You need to realize I did this because you need to be safe. And there's other that it is a conversation. But I'm going to stand before not just how I raise my child, but out of my own actions, out of every idle word of myself. My daughter, guess what? She's going to stand before God on her account as she gets to the age of accountability. And I will not stand before every single detail that my daughter lives in. I won't. And so like, I want to raise my child in the best way that I can, biblically sound in the word. And I want to discipline. And I need to teach her in the way that there's emotional maturity, even when you're angry, even whenever you're exhausted, even when you've worked all day, that you can be calm, collected, that you may still get disciplined and you may still have moments of even your manager, your bosses, etc. might fall short. The pastor, the shepherd, you fill in the blank, the president may fall short, but it's like we all have our decision of our own life and gain control our own self. So, but I would encourage you all as parents, ask yourselves, man, how can I live in self-control today in my parenting style and the way that I discipline and the way that I live? So we love you guys. I would encourage you that. Ask yourselves those questions, believe and see that the Lord is good. So don't go sin in your anger. Nothing wrong with getting angry in parenting, but don't go sin in it. We love you guys. Deuces.